The following documentary deals with mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Monday, May 28, 1989. In Chatham, New Brunswick, police arrive on the scene of a house fire. They soon discover that this was no accidental blaze.
The violence that took place during that assault was amazing. There was very little doubt that we were looking at a crime scene.
Just one man basically was holding this whole province hostage.
In one of the largest manhunts in Canadian history, there are those who chronicle the investigation up close, on film, on paper, and on tape. They are the public's first witness. Through their lens, they capture our darkest chapters of crime. In the spring of 1989, residents go about their daily routines in Chatham, New Brunswick. Located on the Miramichi River, Chatham sits in a region of Atlantic Canada, renowned for its natural setting and its strong sense of community.
The Miramichi is a very placid, beautiful part of the world. This is a part of the world where people don't normally lock their doors. You leave your keys in your car in your driveway.
It's a community really for a long time that had lived with sort of unlocked doors and fairly secure in their homes.
But in 1989, that sense of security comes under attack when a series of horrendous crimes gives way to an unprecedented wave of terror.
It was a time that I hope to God is never duplicated in our lifetime again.
Sunday, May 28th. The day is winding down for Annie and Nina Flam. The two elderly sisters-in-law live in adjoining duplexes in Chatham, which is attached to a small grocery store that Annie has run for 50 years.
And we all knew the Flams. I mean, they were a long history here in the Miramichi, very well-respected people.
Annie was sort of everyone's great aunt. If you asked people about Annie Flam's store, it was, yeah, I remember going in there when I was a kid.
11 p.m. Neighbors see Annie locking up her store. Upstairs, the lights remain on as her sister Nina reads in bed. Both women are unaware that a third person has just entered their home. Several hours later, a resident walks the dark streets. As he nears the Flam store, he spots a fire raging upstairs. Within minutes, firemen burst inside and find Nina near the back door, badly burned, but still alive.
At first, of course, everyone thought it was a fire. Then it became very obvious it wasn't a fire, it was a fire to cover up crime.
She had been beaten quite severely. Absolutely remarkable that she lived, given the beating that she had gone through.
Nina is rushed to the hospital while firefighters battle the flames and search for Annie. With indications of an assault, police are summoned to the scene. Arriving early that morning are Dan Chasson and Ronald Godin, two forensic experts from nearby Bathurst.
The scene was completely secured, roped off as such. The center of the roof was completely burned out. There was still the smell of burning, of burnt material in the air and so forth.
The two men enter, looking for evidence of a crime. Burn patterns near the staircase suggest arson.
Something very hot, something happened here, and that in your minds, you're saying to yourself, that could be one of an area we'd have to really look in for a set fire.
We walked up the staircase, being very careful because there was a lot of structural damage. So that whole area of the apartment was totally damaged, a lot of debris.
In the upstairs bedroom, a terrible sight. Unlike her sister Nina, Annie did not escape the inferno.
We saw a piece of knee sticking out, burnt knee, but you couldn't tell it was a knee, it was like just a bone coming out through some of the ceiling tiles that had collapsed. And slowly we photographed everything inside. Then we started removing layers of debris to unbury the body. And as we were going down, we finally had the first vision, the first view of Annie laying on her bed. The heat had done an awful lot of damage.
I mean, everything had burnt right down to the ground, so all that was left was the spring and the bed frame.
While investigators examine the scene, Nina Flam lies in the hospital. Although barely conscious, she begins to speak to police.
She was able to give us some description and information as to what transpired on her side of the duplex.
The previous night, Nina was in bed when she heard the sound of footsteps coming up the stairwell outside her door.
She recalls someone bursting into her bedroom, grabbing her, throwing her on the bed.
The man binds Nina's hands and holds a knife to her throat, demanding to know where the sisters keep their money. After ransacking the apartment, the man then beats and sexually assaults Nina Flam.
When he's done sexually assaulting her, he tucks her into the bed, almost gently, and sets a fire and leaves.
The bed had been set on fire. The closet had been set on fire. The door had been shut. She must have gone through hell. Can you picture in your mind being tied to a bed, someone trying to rape you, someone setting fire right beside you on your bed, you see a fire burning in your closet, and the guy just walks out and closes the door, and he's gone. The terror that must be going through your mind.
Although badly injured and left for dead, Nina manages to untie herself before the fire and smoke overwhelm her.
She somehow managed to stagger through the fire down the stairwell to the back stairs, where she basically collapsed.
Once examined, the body of Nina's sister Annie reveals a similar violent assault.
Annie was killed in her bed, and the same method of operation. You tuck the sheets back in as if she had died in her sleep.
News of the violent attack comes as a shock to the small community. Police go door to door in Chatham, looking for eyewitnesses and potential suspects. While back at the crime scene, every inch of the Flam apartment comes under intense scrutiny.
Every time we seize a piece of evidence, whether it's a hair, a fiber, a cigarette butt, a footwear impression, it's photographed. Everything that we found at the scene pointed, it was almost exactly to the way she described the scene. The way she was tied and what she was tied with, where the fire was started.
Police find a hair in the bedroom, and due to the sexual assaults, semen samples are recovered. But this evidence does not yet provide them with a name. As the days pass, no arrests are made, and concern grows through the region.
I don't know how to describe it really. It was a fear that gripped this whole community, not just the city of Miramichi, but the whole Miramichi watershed was certainly under threat.
Adding to the fear is the fact that two known criminals are on the loose. Although no evidence ties either to the scene, one of them is well known and has murdered before in a violent fashion. If he is behind this latest attack, residents may have a serial killer in their midst.
There was an expectation that if it was this particular person, that the police would probably catch him very quickly. And unfortunately, that didn't occur.
In May of 1989, a violent attack in the Miramichi region of New Brunswick leaves one elderly woman dead and her sister-in-law critically injured. In St. John, the funeral of Annie Flam draws an outpouring of grief and anger.
Well, I feel really bad, because why would anybody want to do something to her? She didn't do nothing wrong.
While police have yet to tie anyone to the crime, two known criminals become the focus of public speculation. One of them is an escaped convict from a minimum security prison elsewhere in the province. Also on the loose, and of greater concern to residents, is another man named Alan Legere. Legere is a man tied to a violent crime in the past, one with a striking resemblance to the recent attack on the Flams. The crime took place 3 years earlier, in May of 1986. At the time, John and Mary Glendenning ran a small grocery store in the Miramichi region.
Here's two people minding their own business, so well known, so well liked, so well respected. Well, they had closed their store for the night and had just gone into their home when all of a sudden the door was burst in. These three individuals attacked them.
The violence involved in both the beating of Mary Glendenning and the death of John Glendenning, it was quite obvious there was a violent struggle.
It was pretty clear that from the crime scene that it had been an awful murder. Both Glendennings had been put through everyone's worst nightmare in their home.
You have to search your mind and say, who's capable of that? Who's capable of that?
Shortly after the attack, police arrested 3 men. The presumed ringleader of the group is 38-year-old Alan Legere, a man with a history of burglaries and violent assaults.
Just wanted to be known that the Crown Prosecutor, Fred Ferguson, and Mason Johnson, the RCMP, are doing everything to frame me.
He had a big reputation here among the criminal community. He was considered one of the most feared people around. He was strong, he was a good fighter, and he wasn't afraid to use weapons. There were a lot of sides to Alan Legere. He could be charming, he could be brutal, he could be articulate, and he could be very blunt. But he had a violent streak in him, a very violent streak.
In January of 1987, along with the other 2 men involved, Alan Legere was convicted of murder and sent to the Atlantic Institution in Renew.
He would have been a handful for any guard at any institution in Canada. I don't blame the guards for what happened.
2 years later, May 3rd, 1989, Alan Legere is shackled with leg irons, handcuffs, and body chain, and escorted by 2 guards to a hospital in Moncton to see a specialist for an ear infection.
They arrived at the hospital. They went to the check-in outpatient's desk. One of the officers stood at the desk to check in and do the paperwork. Legere then said that he had to go to the washroom.
To some degree, they trusted it, Alan Legere. This is a luxury that a guard in an institution cannot afford.
Inside the washroom, Alan Legere uses a makeshift key to undo his restraints. He then bursts into the hallway, waves an improvised knife, and sprints towards the hospital exit.
So 2 officers come running out. chasing him, and by this time Legere was in the parking lot.
At the time, Moncton resident Peggy Olive is getting into her car outside the hospital. Within seconds, Legere takes her hostage.
And then he stuck something sharp against my neck and said if I didn't do what he told me, that he would use it. That was such a direct threat.
Driving Peggy's car, he leaves the hospital grounds and heads into the city of Moncton.
He had this aura of evil that it just, like I thought, this is the end of my life. If I'm going to die today, this man is going to kill me. My mind started racing. Am I better off to try to jump out of the car, or would he grab me? And I kept telling him, no, I won't go to the police if you just let me go.
Peggy Olive is finally released, shaken but unharmed.
I was feeling all this terror inside me. I knew that from my registration and everything in the car that he would know where I lived.
Meanwhile, local police set up roadblocks across Moncton.
The cops were everywhere, absolutely everywhere, because everybody knew this was not just an ordinary escapee. This was Alan Legere, convicted murderer, a very brutal man. And he got away.
The police dragnet fails. Apprehension grows for people in the Miramichi region to the north, the site of the Glendenning murder and Alan Legere's lifelong home.
I'm terrified, just like the rest of the neighborhood. It seems that we just can't live a normal life around here anymore.
And then everybody had this question in the back of their minds, is he coming back? Is he going to come here?
Most felt that he probably held a grudge against a lot of people in the community, so anyone that would have had contact with this person in the past in any a difference of opinion or anything like that were very fearful that there may be some retribution now that he had escaped.
With the sudden violent attack on Nina and Annie Flam coming just 3 weeks after Alan Legere's escape, fears of his return seem confirmed.
People suspected that it was Alan Legere, but there was no proof that it was Alan Legere.
So everyone was frightened. Now, they were frightened in a way that they didn't realize how frightened it was going to get, and that it didn't matter who you were, that you could be a target.
In June of 1989, police in the Miramichi region of New Brunswick are looking for escaped murderer Alan Legere, as well as the man behind a deadly attack on 2 elderly women. Many residents are convinced it is one and the same person.
Was that general or widespread concern that there was probably an unpredictable, a very violent person on the loose, and no one could really be safe or comfortable until he was again apprehended?
Police maintain an ongoing search for Alan Legere, yet with no concrete proof that he is the man behind the latest attack on the Flam sisters. They continue to follow up on separate leads. Other persons of interest are brought in for questioning. Furthermore, investigators hope that a new forensic tool called DNA typing may soon help them tie one single suspect to the scene.
I mean, we talk about DNA now as if, it's like an everyday occurrence. But in 1989, it was not an everyday occurrence. In 1989, this was new science.
From the attack on the Flams, police have biological evidence in the form of the killer's hair and semen. But in the summer of 1989, an RCMP laboratory capable of doing the proper analysis is still under construction in Ottawa.
All the people that we interviewed over the summer that, had any possibility at all may be involved in the crime, We'd ask them for samples of hair or saliva or blood, anything that would, at some point in the future, if we were able to do the evidentiary analysis in a laboratory, that we would have something to compare it to.
At the end of June, one escaped convict is captured and ruled out as a suspect. But Alan Legere is still on the loose. As the summer progresses, there are no new leads and no further attacks.
There was a feeling in the community that things had kind of settled down and that maybe this person had left the area and gone somewhere else. So it wasn't until the next incident that happened in October that really the community became very, very afraid.
At the time, Donna and Linda Donnie reside in Newcastle.
They were well known in that area. Two women living by themselves, isolated area to a certain degree.
It was a dark little corner. There was no street light there back then. And they sort of kept to themselves.
On Friday, October 13th, Donna is at home alone. At some point after sunset, a man creeps into her backyard. Around 11 p.m., Donna's sister Linda returns home after having coffee with a friend.
Linda was walking home that night. It was dark. It was a nice night. She left her friends. She sort of waved goodbye at the corner. She took a right. She came down over the hill. She would have been walking in the dark into their driveway, and he would have heard coming, and he would have waited. From what we understand, Linda never knew. He simply walked over in the dark as she was coming up and hit her straight in the face.
Early the following morning, firemen respond to a blaze at the Donnie home. As they get it under control, they discover the two sisters in an upstairs bedroom, beaten and burned.
And when they discovered the bodies, it was very, very clear that they hadn't died because of the fire, that there had been something else involved.
The door where one of the fires were set, it was 10 fingers. 10 fingers, and there was blood on them, and you could see them sliding down the back of the door.
We found a pair of pants that was turned inside out. We found some nylons, again with knots in it.
It looked like it was ransacked. Not looking for something to steal, but more to do with being mad, being upset, being totally out of control.
The scene bears the mark of the same killer who attacked the Flams. Along with being badly beaten, both Donnie's sisters have been sexually assaulted. As in the Flam case, hair and semen samples are secured as a biological link to the killer. While police knock on the doors of over 200 Newcastle homes in search of eyewitnesses, fear deepens across the Miramichi.
I don't walk alone at night anymore, that's for sure.
Comes to my door, I have precautions.
We've got a situation in Newcastle and Chatham where everybody's paranoid. Everybody's locking their doors. Everybody's buying a gun or getting a gun. It's really scary.
There are a lot of unanswered questions. The big ones. Is there a serial killer on the loose? Is the same person who killed Annie Flam the one who killed the Donnie sisters? And is that person Alan Legere?
There was a fear in the community that someone was harboring him, that he was intentionally harboring him.
In a Newcastle town meeting, residents voice frustration with the police, expressing a willingness to take the law into their own hands.
We had one guy stand up and say, if he came near my door, I'm going to blow him away, and they can arrest me later. And he got a standing ovation. So that was the state of the community.
More RCMP officers are brought in from Ottawa, including members of the well-armed emergency response team.
We had roving teams of investigators in the wooded area on both sides of the river. looking for any indication of a camp, or we had aerial surveillance passing over the area.
On October 31st, Halloween is canceled on the Miramichi. While residents keep their children off the streets, the new forensic tool police have been waiting for finally becomes available. The RCMP lab in Ottawa is ready to perform DNA testing. Hair and semen samples from the attacks are being sent in, along with biological samples from people interviewed over the summer. Included is a hair sample belonging to Alan Legere, obtained from an earlier conviction. By early November, Chief Scientific Officer John Bowen confirms what residents in the Miramichi region have suspected for months.
From the Nina Flam semen sample, as well as from Linda Doney, I had a very strong reaction in terms of a good profile was developed from that. So from both of those, we actually knew that Alan Legere was a perpetrator.
But before police get a chance to go public with their new evidence, the killer will strike again, this time in a way designed to turn widespread fear into outright panic.
I believe firmly that every one of these killings that took place was coldly calculated, planned, and executed to provide maximum psychological impact.
So he's a killing machine. And, you know, we have to catch him because, I mean, the body count is going to get worse. And it did get worse.
In November of 1989, the Miramichi region of New Brunswick is being held hostage by a serial killer. 2 brutal attacks have left 3 people dead. The prime suspect is escaped murderer Alan Legere.
Things started to fall apart, that in essence he's created a hunting ground and we're it.
Throughout the region, churches strive to provide a sanctuary from the fear. A day of fasting and reflection is announced to help people cope with the wave of violence.
People were scared. They were, I mean, everybody was the lost sheep. When it starts getting to everybody, every month there was something happening, and you were wondering, what's next? You know, is he coming back for something?
In the community of Chatham Head, one prominent figure offering guidance is Father James Smith.
Father Smith was like a father figure for a lot of people.
I have the greatest admiration for him. A real good, kind pastor. Visiting the sick, he was at the hospital almost every day of his life.
On November 16th, Mass in Chatham Head is scheduled for 7 p.m. The congregation waits for their priest, known for his punctuality. By 7:15, he is still absent. 2 parishioners decide to walk over to the rectory next door, and when they peer into the kitchen, they recoil at a horrible sight.
There was blood everywhere. It was as horrible as you can imagine, a scene from hell. What seems very clear is that it became a torture chamber, the kitchen.
Within minutes, police are on the scene.
Things were turned over. A lot of impact staining along the wall at floor level, which is consistent to a person being beaten.
In the rectory office, Father Smith lies dead near a wall safe.
Maybe he tried to beat the combination out of him. We'll never know. But Father Smith was in some bad shape.
He had broken ribs on both sides. I mean, the rib cage completely broken. What happened was it would indicate that somebody jumped on the body, the chest area, with great force to break those ribs off. You know, terrible, terrible, terrible scene.
The loss that I received was terrible. Part of me died. It's the same feeling as I can't talk.
Of all the black days, that certainly had to be the blackest one.
The scale of the violence suggests that it is the work of the same man behind the Flam and Donny murders, a man police are now convinced is Alan Legere. But unlike the previous crimes, no fire was set, suggesting the killer may have left in a hurry, leaving crucial evidence intact.
The culprit had walked throughout the house and left his footwear impressions in the pools of blood throughout the house. Very, very clearly identifiable footwear impressions.
Within hours, Father Smith's car is found next to an area motel. Nearby, police discover a pair of work boots that match the impressions in the rectory, but there is no trace of the man who wore them.
It was bad enough when the Donny sisters were killed in the Flam murder, but panic in the Miramichi after the death of Father Smith was something that I've never seen before and hope I'll never see again.
He killed Annie Flam, he killed Linda and Donna Donny, helpless people. Who is next? Who is next is a priest. And the violence involved. They weren't recognizable as human beings. That's how bad it was.
There was a siege mentality. As night fell, people fled to a place that they thought was safe. They locked the doors, they turned on all the lights, and they bunkered down until the morning.
Can't even go outside, like, in your front yard without being scared.
The panic just keeps ratcheting up, ratcheting up, and ratcheting up.
I remember stories about mothers who'd tell their kids, go to bed or Alan Legere will get you. Well, Alan was the boogeyman.
Already strong, the police presence is bolstered further in what is now one of the largest manhunts in Canadian history.
Any resources that we needed became available. We stationed police officers in the woods at night, along train bridges, anywhere we could think of.
With the Miramichi now resembling an armed camp, police feel Alan Legere may have temporarily left the area, but this does little to ease fears of his return.
But my feeling was that he would come back and try and steal Christmas on it. My sense was he'd have to come back to get back on the news so he could watch himself. And that he did.
November 23rd, 1 week after the murder of Father Smith, Ron Gumke is driving his taxi cab in St. John. A man catches his attention.
And I looked in my rearview mirror, seeing him kind of flagging me back. He opened up the door and he said he had missed his train and he wanted me to take him to Moncton.
While Ron talks with dispatch about the trip, his new fare threatens him with a weapon.
In a real stern voice, he just, tell him you have the money, you're going to Moncton, and that's, he shoved the rifle in my rib. The first sign of a police, first light, he would shoot me right there.
As they leave town, Ron considers intentionally crashing the taxi, weighing the risks of an accident against remaining the hostage of a known killer.
What if I ran into a transport truck? It was crazy thoughts.
On the highway, icy conditions lead to a struggle over the wheel, and the taxi ends up in the ditch.
He said he was going to kill me then. I screwed up his plans. He was going to kill me.
Legere flags down another car, driven by Michelle Mercer, an off-duty RCMP officer. Keeping Ron Gomke hostage, he orders Michelle to continue on towards Moncton. But with the car low on gas, a stop is made to refuel.
While he's pumping the gas, Michelle is like looking at me in the rearview mirror, like whispering, "I got a spare set of keys. You want to go for it?" As soon as he was finished pumping the gas, he went in to pay for it. When he went in, she took the keys, started the car up, and gone. I ducked down in the back seat. I'm looking and peeking over the back seat. I'm just hollering at her, "Go, go, go, go."
While Ron and Michelle stop down the road and call police, Alan Legere hijacks a truck and driver at the gas station, seemingly determined to make his way back to his killing grounds on the Miramichi.
Had he wanted to disappear, he could have disappeared. But that wasn't what he wanted. He wanted to come here. He was like a moth to a flame. He couldn't get away from it.
In November of 1989, escaped murderer Alan Legere is on the run. Within a matter of hours, he has taken 3 people hostage while making his way back to the region where he has killed 4 people in the previous 7 months. With police notified of his whereabouts, he is running out of places to hide.
By that time, the word's out. People saw him getting into the truck, threatening the driver.
The police were ready for him this time. The moment the call went in, they were ready. The trap just closed on them.
The hijacked truck is chased down on a secondary road and encircled.
The driver of the truck was able to escape and get clear of the truck, and then Mr. Legere was told to exit the vehicle.
After giving up his weapon, Alan Legere is finally subdued by the police.
What do you have to say to the people of Miramichi, Alan Legere?
With Canada's most wanted man now in custody, relief sweeps through the Miramichi region.
I think the sun came out that day for all over the Miramichi. It just like a load was lifted off of everyone's shoulders.
It took us most of the day to get a picture of him. Everyone's screaming for this guy's photo. We finally get the photo. The reporter brings it back. I take one look at it and I went, I wouldn't have recognized him if he passed me on the street. Legere had lost like 40 pounds by hiding in the woods for a couple of months.
They found a camp after he was captured, very well hidden. I think he was up in the trees, and that's where he was.
For now, there is joy on the Miramichi because their nightmare is over.
With Alan Legere in custody, police focus on assembling the evidence against him. While his previous murder sentence ensures he will be returning to jail, proving his guilt in the most recent crimes will be challenging.
Now that we have him under arrest, we have him behind bars, the true test comes. Are they going to convict this person or not?
This was the case that was going to decide for Canada if DNA was going to be as acceptable as a fingerprint.
On August 27, 1991, Alan Legere's murder trial begins. At the request of the defense, it is held outside of the Miramichi region.
Because of the publicity that Mr. Legere received before he was ever charged with the offense, we knew picking an unbiased jury was going to be a problem.
The prosecution starts with circumstantial evidence relating to the murder of Father Smith.
I took photographs of Alan Legere's feet. I took ink impressions of, I took a cast or mold of Alan Legere's bare feet and did a comparison with the boots found behind the hotel to see if his weight-bearing area on his feet matched the weight-bearing areas inside of the boot. And the match was very good.
With Alan Legere's feet tied to the crime scene in Father Smith's rectory, the prosecution moves into the biological evidence related to the Flam and Donny murders. Expert witnesses provide an overview of the new science, explaining that no two individuals have the same DNA profile.
Trying to get across to the jury, that was one of the jobs, to try and get it from their level of expertise to the ordinary man's level, which was easy enough because we were ordinary men.
Enlarged X-rays of Alan Legere's DNA are shown in court and demonstrated to be identical to DNA drawn from semen and hair samples found at the two crime scenes.
I think the best profile which I obtained from Linda Donny, the evidence was that in the Caucasian population, 1 in 310 million people would have that profile.
I'm quite certain that the DNA evidence was never understood by the jury. So they basically just took the opinion as evidence of the expert witnesses. It's only one chance in 300 million. Somebody other than Mr. Legere did it. Then, I mean, they don't need any more evidence than that.
As the trial moves on, Nina Flam, the surviving victim from the first attack, takes the stand, painting a dark picture of the savagery that left her in the hospital and her sister dead.
She'd been quite severely injured in the attack. Plus it had been a terrible emotional ordeal for her. I mean, she was the victim of an assault and her sister was murdered. And watching her giving evidence was very moving. I mean, it takes an awful lot of guts to get up and talk about that sort of thing in court. It was just very moving.
And as the evidence mounts against him, Alan Legere shows little remorse. November 3rd, 1991. After deliberating for 13 hours, the jury returns to the courthouse with their decision.
It was one of those verdicts that you sit there in bated breath.
Have you agreed upon your verdict? Yes, we have. On count one, is your verdict guilty or not guilty? Guilty.
Guilty of murder in the first degree. Guilty of murder in the first degree. Guilty of murder in the first degree.
We're talking 4 counts of first-degree murder. And on the 3rd count, he was standing up, and the 2 police officers told me that his knees buckled a bit on the 3rd verdict.
Alan Legere is sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years.
It was an electric scene of people rushing out to get comments and then filed. And there are TV cameras everywhere and there are reporters everywhere.
It was a harbinger of things to come in terms of DNA. It was the first time in Canadian history that a person was convicted almost solely on DNA evidence.
But for people living along the Miramichi River, a forensic breakthrough and a guilty verdict only goes so far in healing the wounds left from a violent reign of terror, wounds that remain to the present day.
There's lessons to be learned, and we should never forget, I guess, completely. But it was a time that there was damage done, psychological damage done to people here in the Miramichi that will probably never heal. We're never going to lose the effects of that completely. I know I never will.
We probably are not the same happy-go-lucky people that we once were.
Still known today as the Monster of the Miramichi, Alan Legere remains in a high-security special handling unit in Quebec, allowed out of his cell only an hour a day.
I said it before, I'll say it again. Somebody asked me, what do you think he's doing? In jail there right now. And what he's doing, he's planning his next escape.
No question. Give him a chance, he will. And I'll tell you something, if he does, he's coming back here.
I know that Correctional Service of Canada is keeping him under very close watch.
Although Alan Legere is eligible for parole in the year 2016, the permanent threat he poses to society, having committed 4 brutal murders in 3 different time frames, makes it unlikely that he will ever be released.
I would suggest if Alan Legere comes up for parole, he'd better get a big room, because I think there will be an awful mass of people from the Miramichi there to tell their side of the victim side of the story.
It's probably the most challenging case of all my career. And to see it come to a fruitful conclusion, I think was probably the most satisfaction a person could have.